15 degrees below zero. That is the temperature where human skin freezes in minutes. I did not feel the cold yet, just the copper taste of blood in my mouth as my father Marcus dragged me to the back door. He threw me onto the patio ice like a bag of garbage. "Get out, thief!" he screamed, his voice cracking the Arctic silence. "You are dead to me!" The heavy oak door slammed shut. The deadbolt clicked. I looked up at the living room window. My brother Cameron was standing there holding a warm mug of cocoa. He smiled at me. He knew I did not steal the vintage Rolex. But as the wind cut through my thin shirt, I realized this was not just a punishment. In Anchorage, Alaska, without a coat, this was an execution. Drop a comment and let me know where you are listening from and what time it is for you right now. I would love to know who is part of our community. Banging on the door was not an option. Screaming for my mother, who was working a double shift at the hospital, was a waste of precious oxygen. I knew the physics of my situation immediately. The house was locked. My coat was inside. The temperature was -15. If I stayed on the patio hoping for mercy, hypothermia would set in within 20 minutes. I had to move. My best friend Kayla lived 2 miles away. In the summer, that is a 20-minute jog. Tonight, it was a marathon through the 7th circle of hell. I started walking. Running was dangerous. Running makes you sweat, and sweat freezes. I kept my arms wrapped tight around my chest to hold my broken ribs together. Every breath was a shard of glass in my lungs. The wind cut through my thin cotton shirt like it wasn't even there. I focused on the streetlights. Just make it to the next pole, then the next. I disassociated from my body. I became a machine. Left foot. Right foot. Do not stop. Stopping is dying. I do not remember arriving at Kayla's house. I remember the porch light, a blurry halo in the dark. I remember falling against the doorframe because my hands were too numb to make a fist to knock. Then warmth, noise, Kayla's dad lifting me off the floor. Then blackness. I woke up the next morning on a strange sofa. The air smelled like antiseptic and coffee. My mother, Cynthia, was sitting in a chair across from me. She was still in her scrubs from the ER. She looked exhausted, gray-faced, like she had aged 10 years in a single night. But her eyes were dry. She was staring at my hands, which were bandaged from the frostbite and the purple bruising blooming across my jawline. For years, my mother had been the peacekeeper. She was the one who smoothed things over, who told me to just ignore him when Marcus got angry, who whispered that he was just stressed when he belittled me. She had built her life around managing his volatility, treating him like an unexploded bomb that we all had to tiptoe around. She thought she was protecting the family. She thought she was keeping us together. She looked at me, and I saw the peacekeeper die. "I thought I was saving us," she said, her voice terrifyingly quiet. "I thought if I just absorbed enough of his anger, if I just kept the house quiet enough, he would be okay. I spent 14 years negotiating with a terrorist because I was too afraid to leave." She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the snow that had almost been my grave. "I watched him chip away at you, Destiny. I watched him treat you like a burden, and I told myself it wasn't that bad. I told myself he loved you in his own way. I lied." She turned back to me. There were no tears, only a cold, hard clarity. "I kept the peace until it almost killed you. I am not keeping the peace anymore. Now I am going to burn his peace to the ground." She did not hug me. She did not offer empty comforts. She reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. Calling my father was not on the agenda. Neither was calling the dealership. She dialed a number she had saved for years but never used. "Hello," she said, her voice steady as a surgeon's. "This is Cynthia. I need to file for an emergency protective order and immediate divorce." "Yes, I have photos. I have medical records. And I am done talking. To understand why my father, Marcus, was willing to kill me over a watch, you have to understand the economy of our household. In Anchorage, Marcus was not just a dealership owner. He was a local celebrity. He sold high-end snowmobiles and ATVs to oil executives and tourists. His currency was image. He needed everything around him to shine, and that included his children. My brother Cameron was 18 and shone brighter than anyone. He was the star athlete, the charmer, the one who could sell ice to an Eskimo. But his biggest selling point was his reputation as a tech prodigy. He was the president of the robotics club, the kid who was going to Silicon Valley to make millions. My father loved that narrative. He bragged about it at every dinner party. I was the shadow. I was 14, quiet, and lived in the server room of my own mind. But here was the truth that only the three of us knew. Cameron couldn't code his way out of a paper bag. I was the one who fixed his projects. I was the one who debugged his code the night before it was due. I was the one who set up the dealership's inventory system while Cameron took the credit for optimizing operations. I was not a daughter to Marcus. I was technical support that he didn't have to pay. The conflict started 3 days before the blizzard. Marcus had a vintage 1950s Rolex Submariner. It was an heirloom valued at $18,500. It sat in a glass display case in his study, a trophy of his success. On Thursday it vanished. I knew immediately who took it. Cameron had been sweating for weeks. I had seen the notifications popping up on his phone, urgent messages from crypto exchange platforms, and angry texts from people with names like Vegas Vic. He was deep in a hole of gambling debts, trying to leverage Ethereum to pay off sports bets. He didn't just steal the watch. He liquidated the family legacy to cover a bad spread. But when Marcus discovered the empty case, Cameron didn't even blink. He pointed a finger straight at me. "Destiny took it," he said, his voice smooth as oil. "She's been talking about buying those expensive digital art tablets for months. Check her search history." It was a lazy lie, a provably false lie. But Marcus didn't check my history. He didn't ask for proof. He turned on me with a rage that felt rehearsed. I used to think he believed Cameron because he loved him more. That night, looking at my father's purple face, I finally understood the mechanics of his mind. It wasn't love. It was vanity. When Marcus looked at Cameron, he saw a younger, better version of himself, successful, handsome, flawless. When he looked at me, he saw a liability. He saw someone who didn't fit the brand. To accept that Cameron was a thief, a desperate gambling addict, would be a narcissistic injury my father's ego could not survive. It would mean admitting that his golden child was flawed, which meant he was flawed. It was psychologically easier for him to believe that I was a villain than to accept that his reflection was cracked. He didn't care about the truth. He cared about the narrative. And in his story, the golden boy is the hero, and the quiet girl in the hoodie is the thief. He beat me not because I was guilty, but because he needed me to be. You might think that having the police show up at your door with photos of your battered daughter would be a wake-up call. You might think it would shame a father into silence, or at least hesitation. But narcissists do not feel shame. They feel attacked. And when they feel attacked, they go to war. The police report was filed on a Tuesday. By Wednesday morning, Marcus had launched a scorched earth campaign. He didn't call to apologize. He called my mother's lawyer to inform her that he had frozen our access to the joint accounts. He cut off my phone plan. He drained my college savings fund, claiming he needed to protect the assets during the divorce. He told my mother that if I didn't recant my statement to the police, he would bury her in legal fees until she was working double shifts just to afford a cardboard box. He wasn't trying to fix the family. He was trying to starve us into submission. Then came Cameron. My brother didn't just stay silent. He went on the offensive. I was staying at Kayla's healing when my phone connected to Wi-Fi, since my data was dead, started blowing up. Friends were sending me screenshots from Instagram and TikTok. Cameron had posted a video. He looked tired, sad, the perfect picture of a concerned brother. "Hey guys," he said to the camera, his voice trembling with fake emotion. "I didn't want to bring this up, but there are some rumors flying around. My sister Destiny is struggling right now. We found out she's been dealing with a serious pill addiction. She stole some family heirlooms to pay for it, and when my dad confronted her, she had a psychotic break. We're just trying to get her help. Please pray for our family." I watched the video 3 times. I read the comments. Hundreds of people, kids I went to school with, neighbors, teachers were sending him hearts and prayers. "Stay strong, Cam. Addiction is so hard. Poor Marcus." He was rewriting reality in real time. He was taking the bruises his father gave me and turning them into evidence of my own instability. He was destroying my reputation to protect his lie. I put the phone down. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. I walked into the kitchen where my mother was on the phone with the bank, fighting for access to her own paycheck. I listened to her voice, steely, professional, unyielding. She wasn't begging anymore. She was documenting every refusal, every threat. I went back to my room. There were no tears for the comments, nor a frantic defense posted in panic. I realized that arguing with a liar only gives their lie more oxygen. Marcus and Cameron thought they had won because they controlled the money and the narrative. They thought I was just a 14-year-old girl with a broken phone and a frozen bank account. They forgot one thing. I was the one who set up their passwords. I was the one who synced their devices. They were fighting a PR war. I was about to start a digital one. Our new life was small. My mother had rented a 2-bedroom apartment above a bakery in downtown Anchorage. It was noisy and smelled of yeast, a sharp contrast to the silent, sterile mansion we had left behind. But it was safe. There were no heavy footsteps in the hallway, no sudden shouting, just the hum of the city and the quiet rustle of my mother reviewing legal documents at the kitchen table. But safety wasn't enough. We were bleeding money. Marcus's lawyers were delaying every hearing, filing motion after motion to drain my mother's resources. He was banking on us running out of cash before we could get to trial. He was betting on attrition. I needed a weapon. And on a Tuesday night, digging through a box of cables and chargers, I found it. It was an old iPad Air. I had bought it with my own money 3 years ago for drawing, but when Cameron shattered his phone screen in a rage after losing a fantasy football match, I had lent it to him for a month. He had returned it with a cracked bezel and a shrug. I had tossed it in a drawer and forgotten about it. I plugged it in. The battery icon flashed red, then white. It booted up. I held my breath as the lock screen appeared. I typed in the passcode my birthday because Cameron was too lazy to change it. It unlocked. I expected to see my old drawing apps. Instead, I saw a stream of notifications cascading down the screen like a digital waterfall. iMessage, WhatsApp, Coinbase, DraftKings. Cameron, in his infinite arrogance and technological incompetence, had never logged out of his Apple ID. He had never disabled the cloud sync. I was holding a ghost mirror of his current phone. I sat on the floor, my heart hammering against my ribs. I tapped on the Messages app. It updated in real time. I saw a text thread with Dad. Marcus, did she sign the NDA yet, Cameron? No. She's stalling. We need to cut off her health insurance next. Mom needs those meds for her blood pressure. Marcus, done. I'll call HR tomorrow. I felt a cold flash of nausea. They weren't just defending themselves. They were actively hunting us. I scrolled further. I saw threads with names I didn't recognize. Bookie Rick, Crypto, Steve. The messages were frantic. Cameron, I need more time. The Ethereum dip killed me. Rick, you have until Friday, Cam. Or we come to the dealership. I opened his photo stream. Screenshots of betting slips. Screenshots of our bank accounts with the passwords visible. And then, buried in a hidden album, I found a video dated the day of the blizzard. It was taken from the living room window. It showed my father dragging me across the patio. It showed him throwing me into the snow. Cameron had filmed it. He hadn't tried to stop it. He had documented it for leverage. Screaming was inefficient. Running to my mother without proof was useless. I walked to my desk, opened my laptop, and connected the iPad. I started downloading everything. Every text, every photo, every betting slip. I wasn't just a sister anymore. I was a forensic archivist. They thought they had buried me in the snow. They forgot that the cloud sees everything. I had enough evidence to win the divorce. I had the texts proving financial abuse, the video of the assault, and the proof that Cameron had lied about the Rolex. That should have been enough. I should have closed the laptop and called it a victory. But I kept digging. I wasn't looking for closure anymore. I was looking for a kill shot. It was 3 a.m. My eyes were burning, but the adrenaline kept me wired. I opened a folder in Cameron's cloud drive labeled School Projects. Most of it was empty proof that he did none of his own work, but there was a subfolder titled Robotics Treasurer. My brother had been elected treasurer of the Robotics Club because Marcus had bought the team new 3D printers. It was a vanity title. Cameron couldn't balance a checkbook, let alone a budget. I clicked on a spreadsheet named Fiscal Year 24 Budget. At first glance, it looked normal. Rows for motors, sensors, filament, competition fees. But the numbers felt wrong. I cross-referenced the line items with his email receipts. There was an invoice for high-torque servo motors totaling $2,500. I checked the vendor. The company didn't exist. The routing number for the payment didn't go to a robotics supplier. It went to a PayPal account linked to an email address I recognized, CryptoSteve88. I kept scrolling. Advanced LiDAR sensors, $4,000. Competition travel logistics, $3,500. I pulled up the club's official bank statements, which Cameron had foolishly downloaded. The withdrawals matched the fake invoices perfectly. He wasn't buying parts. He was laundering school district funds directly into his gambling debts. I did the math. In 6 months, Cameron had embezzled $12,450 from a public school organization. I sat back in my chair. The room was silent, but my head was screaming. This wasn't just being a bad brother. This wasn't just lying to our dad. This was a felony. This was grand larceny and wire fraud. He had stolen money meant for kids who actually loved building things, kids who sold chocolate bars to pay for their kits just to cover his losses on a bad parlay. I took the laptop into the kitchen. My mother was awake, staring into a cup of tea. She looked up as I set the computer in front of her. "What is it?" she asked. "It's not just the watch," I said. "Cameron stole $12,000 from the high school." She read the screen. She looked at the fake invoices, then at the betting slips. She released no gasp. She shed no tears. Her face went stone cold. She picked up her phone and took a picture of the screen. "Mom," I said, "if we report this, he goes to jail." She looked at me and I saw the tigress again. "He watched your father throw you into a blizzard, Destiny. He filmed it. He tried to ruin your life to save his own skin. He is an adult. He made his choices." She called our lawyer Ruth at 3:15 in the morning. Ruth answered on the second ring. I heard my mother explain the situation. Then she listened. A slow, terrifying smile spread across her face. "Okay," my mother said. "We wait." She hung up and turned to me. "The Future Tech Leaders Gala is on Saturday. Cameron is receiving an award for his leadership in the robotics club. Ruth says if we turn this in now, they might just quietly suspend him. But if we wait, if we let him walk onto that stage and accept the award for integrity." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. We weren't just going to report a crime. We were going to let him build the stage for his own execution. The Future Tech Leaders Gala was held in the ballroom of the Captain Cook Hotel. It was the social event of the season for Anchorage's tech community. Everyone was there, school board members, local politicians, and potential investors. And right in the center of it all was Marcus wearing a $3,000 suit, shaking hands and beaming like a king holding court. I stood in the back of the room wearing a hoodie and jeans blending into the shadows. I watched my father. He looked untouchable. He looked like a man who had successfully erased his daughter and secured his legacy. Cameron was seated at the head table, looking nervous but triumphant. He kept checking his phone, probably deleting messages from his bookie, unaware that I was archiving every deletion in real time. The lights dimmed. The principal took the stage. Tonight, he announced into the microphone, we honor a student who exemplifies integrity, innovation, and leadership. A young man who has managed the robotics club finances with impeccable transparency while leading the team to state finals. Please welcome Cameron. The applause was thunderous. Marcus stood up, clapping harder than anyone, his face glowing with pride. This was the moment he lived for. This was the validation of his golden child narrative. Cameron walked onto the stage. He took the Crystal Award. He leaned into the microphone. "Thank you," he said, flashing his charming smile. "I believe that technology is about building trust. It's about—" He stopped mid-sentence. 2 uniformed police officers had just entered through the side doors. They didn't stop at the edge of the room. They walked straight up the center aisle, their footsteps heavy on the carpet. The room went silent. The principal looked at his phone, which had just buzzed with an urgent email notification, the dossier I had sent exactly 3 minutes ago. He looked at the attachment. He looked at Cameron. His face went white. The officers climbed the stage stairs. Cameron, the lead officer, said, his voice carrying without a microphone in the dead silence. "You are under arrest for grand larceny, wire fraud, and embezzlement of public school funds." Cameron dropped the award. It shattered on the stage floor, a perfect poetic echo of the broken trust he had built his life on. "What is this?" Marcus shouted, charging toward the stage. "Do you know who I am? Get away from my son." A third officer stepped into Marcus's path. "Mr. Marcus, we have a warrant for you as well. Violation of a protective order and witness intimidation." He handed Marcus a thick envelope. "You are also being served with a restraining order and a notice of asset freeze regarding your divorce." "This is a mistake!" Marcus roared, looking around the room for support. But there was no support. The crowd was whispering, phones were out, recording the downfall of the local kingpin. I stepped out of the shadows. Marcus saw me. For a second, he looked ready to kill. Then he saw the phone in my hand, recording everything. He saw the cold, dead look in my eyes. And for the first time in his life, he realized he had no power. He wasn't the hero of the story. He was just a man in a suit, watching his golden legacy dissolve into handcuffs and public shame. The fallout was absolute. Cameron was expelled and charged with multiple felonies. His reputation as a tech prodigy evaporated overnight, replaced by the mugshot that made the front page of the Anchorage Daily News. Marcus fared no better. The video of his arrest and the leaked footage of him throwing me into the snow destroyed his business. The community he had groomed for years turned their backs on him. He ended up alone in that big freezing house, surrounded by assets he could no longer sell and a silence he could not command. My mother won the settlement. She got everything she asked for, but she didn't use it to buy luxury. She used it to build a fortress of stability for us. As for me, I didn't just walk away. I used my share of the settlement to launch the Frozen Truth Scholarship. It is a full-ride grant for at-risk youth pursuing degrees in cybersecurity and digital arts. But there is a catch. The application explicitly states candidates with any record of academic dishonesty need not apply. Every year when I award that scholarship, I am not just helping a kid who needs it, I am planting a seed. I am proving that success isn't about image or lies, it is about the truth. My father tried to freeze me out of the family. He tried to erase me. Instead, he taught me that the cold preserves things. It preserves evidence. It preserves strength. And eventually the thaw comes for everyone. If you believe the best revenge is building something, they said you couldn't hit that like button and share this story. Let's remind the world that the truth always comes out in the thaw.